Well, to talk more about this topic, we've got Jonathan Liss joining us, a Deputy Director of the think tank British Influence. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. What are your initial thoughts on this report?
Well, obviously, it's incredibly worrying and distressing that Britain, which is perhaps the sixth largest economy in the world, is now seeing 14% of its population face endemic hunger. That is the sort of thing that we have been more accustomed to seeing in countries that we call less developed or in the old days, third world, etc. Obviously, it's terrible wherever it happens, but it's just incredibly shocking that Britain, which is a country that is so rich, could have such extraordinary inequality in its wealth distribution.
Why do we have such vast inequalities then here in the UK?
Well, I think that you have to identify it as being a series of political choices. These things, poverty is not an act of God. It's not something that just happens. It doesn't have to be just the way of the world. It is always as a series of conscious and I suppose sometimes unconscious political decisions. So sometimes there are conscious political decisions to keep certain people poor, and there are decisions that have knock-on effects for the poorest people. Unfortunately, in Britain, with a Conservative government, we have both. We have a government that is determined to keep the richest people rich and to hoard the wealth at the very top, particularly, in the last government of Liz Truss. But Rishi Sunak is exactly the same in many ways. He doesn't want to increase wages, even sort of to the level of, say, 6%, when inflation is running at 8.7%. There's also a kind of ideology that considers poor people as a problem and doesn't want to really tackle the causes of inequality, the causes of poverty, and helping people get on their feet with benefits and so on.
Jonathan, I believe the Chancellor is meeting with supermarket chiefs this week. Jeremy Hunt even today has some appointments to try and figure out why prices are escalating and to figure out if these supermarkets are indeed profiteering. Do you think this might help?
I hope it does. The government has sort of talked about maybe sort of regulating certain prices, which might be a positive step in some ways. The supermarkets are arguing that it wouldn't help. The point is that there are different kind of ideas of what is fueling inflation. A lot of the government keeps saying that it's a wage price spiral, which means that if you increase wages, that's going to increase inflation. But really, that is a 1970s myth. It's an outdated economic theory. And what is actually fueling inflation is, as you say, profiteering, because it's only so supermarkets and other big industries can keep their profit margins that they're having to raise the prices for consumers. And that is fueling inflation, which is remaining stubbornly high. So I think that everyone has to accept that people are going to lose money. And we've been losing money as consumers for a long time. It's only fair that some big businesses should have to take a hit on their profits as well. So I hope that those meetings can be fruitful in some way.
Jonathan Liss, thank you so much. Deputy Director of the think tank British Influence and a journalist joining us here on WION World as One.
Thank you.